So you want to know how much income you need to buy a $500,000 home. So you go onto Google or you ask AI. And within 2 seconds, you get an answer of a salary range, but the answer has no context. So people end up buying and then half their paycheck disappears to their mortgage, and then their car breaks down and they're suddenly house poor. And I've seen this time and time again because I'm a mortgage expert who's helped over 500 families find the number they can actually afford, not just the one they qualify for. So I'm gonna show you both numbers and a simple framework to customize the payment to your lifestyle. So we're going to first cover the basics first, because if you don't understand the basics, then you can't get advanced. So what we'll start off with is conventional 20% down, because that will remove what's called private mortgage insurance, which limits the variables for now. However, before you click away from the video, right, we will absolutely cover different down payment options, different loan programs, and I'll also include private mortgage insurance in the whole equation and all that stuff, okay? So here's the basic assumptions. Let's just say $500,000 home, obviously, right? And let's just assume a 6% interest rate. The reason why I'm making this is you might watch it in the future, rates have gone down, etc. 1% for property taxes, that's about the average across the nation, right? Homeowners insurance or home insurance, I'm gonna say $300 a month. For private mortgage insurance, we'll cover that later and we'll make that zero for now. Down payment, we'll start with 20% down. And again, we're gonna change that amount later as well. So what does this mean for your monthly payment? Here's the math, 20% down. Again, just for this simple first version, we will absolutely do other down payment options like 3% down, 3.5% down, or even the elusive VA loan at 0% down. So we'll cover that later. For a $500,000 house, that's $100,000 down. And that means at the interest rate that we talked about earlier, the principal and interest is $2,398. And then the property taxes are $417 a month. And then insurance, we're just estimating $300 a month. So you add that all up together, you get about $3,115. Now, the cool thing is that I did break out those monthly payment differences for each principal, interest, taxes, insurance. So you can actually increase or decrease those values based on your area, right? Like Texas has higher property taxes in Florida compared to California or Arizona, right? So you can make those adjustments there. Now, before we get into how much income you need for that $500,000 house, we first have to understand that there are actually two different numbers you want to be looking at. There's the lender's number, and then there's your personal number. So what I mean by lender's number is going to be, it's based on a strict, math formula based on debt and income and certain maximum ranges, right? Now they're just going to give you this number and not actually tell you what you're comfortable with. They're going to give you a loan based on a risk formula for themselves. They don't calculate the vacations you want, the car you want, the kids you want, the growing the family. This is where your personal number comes into play as well. So let's first cover the lender numbers, right? Because that's technically what the lender is going to look at. So for a conventional loan, you can go up to 50% total debt to income, okay? Or debt versus income. So let's pull up the math that we did earlier, and we're going to, put the payment somewhere over here, okay? So we're going to take that total monthly payment that was $3,115, right? That we got from earlier. And then you want to divide that number by the max debt to income ratio or number that the lender will allow. And then you're going to convert that to an annual amount if you wanted to. So for example, not to get fancy, $3,115 divided by 50% is $6,230 a month of income, okay? You multiply that by 12, and that should give you around $75,000 annually, okay? Now, some of you are watching this, and you're like, man, I make right around that amount or just below it or above it. And like, I definitely can't afford a $500,000 house. And you would be correct to be shocked, because this is assuming no debt. You're also putting 20% down, right? And you're also just pretty much putting all the money that you make into the mortgage, right? That is not a smart idea. So again, that's why this number is technically what the lender is willing to risk and not what you're comfortable for. And unfortunately, most videos on how much you can afford just stop right there, right? And just like, hey, that's the math formula, so best of luck. But in my opinion, that's not a full solution, right? So let's show you other down payment options like I mentioned, because like I said, this is 20% down and you're like, well, Nathan, that's nice if I had 100 grand. What if I have a lot less? Let's see what that looks like. So conventional, you can do 3% down if you're a first-time home buyer. FHA, you can do 3.5% down. You do not need to be a first-time home buyer. VA, you can do 0% down, and you also do not need to be a first-time home buyer. So FHA, you can go up to 46.99% with just the mortgage, and then you can go up to 56.99%, but that includes like all the other debt, like car loans, student loans, credit cards, all that stuff. VA doesn't really have a limit, but I've seen as high as 60% for housing. I'm not saying that you should do that, but you technically could. So I'm gonna have the numbers pop up for you. So like I said, conventional 3% down. You have to be a first-time home buyer to do this. FHA 3.5% down, and then VA 0% down. And I know I rattled this off really quickly, but I'd like to provide value per second. So feel free to pause the video and screenshot this on the screen. If you're number nerds like me, I would want to reference this later in my photos album. Okay, so real quick, if you're still wondering if you're ready to buy a house or not, that's actually why I built a free homebuyer readiness quiz. It takes less than 30 seconds and there's no credit pull. So it's my free gift to you. It's something that I wish I would have had when I bought my first house. It's like, man, I have all these information blockages or I don't know what to do. That's exactly what the homebuyer readiness quiz does. And it gives you a custom video to solve that constraint, and then you move on to the next step. And also, if you wanted a more custom one-on-one plan and personally talk to me, there's a guidance link right below that where I get to sit down with you for about 15, 20 minutes, figure out what your goals are, and I can give you more strategic and specific advice to your scenario. And if it makes sense, maybe we can be your mortgage advisor. So if you're interested, check out that link as well. All right, so that's one part of the formula that we talked about, right? The lender's number. That's the ceiling, right? And that's where most videos stop. But I'm gonna talk about your personal number, how to calculate it, all that good stuff, okay? So the reason why I developed this framework, or let's call it the spoiler, the spectrum, right? Is because I found that, like when someone says, if you ask the question like, hey, how do I buy a house? It's like, oh yeah, just make $1 million and then you're good to go. It's like, okay, well technically, yeah, okay, if I did, then I could buy a house, but that's not actually helpful, right? So I actually wanted to pull apart, how do we define your personal number? So that's what we're gonna go over today. So I call this the affordability spectrum. This is something that I developed by breaking out affordability into ranges. And I found this to be the most helpful because, like I mentioned, it's not like thinking in binary, right? Like, is this affordable, yes or no? That isn't really helpful. Just like if I ask like, hey, are you happy? Yes or no? The better question is probably how happy are you, right? Or how fulfilled are you? Therefore, affordability should also be the same question. So I found that ranges in affordability is the most helpful thing to do. So there's 3 zones. First, you have the save more zone. That's the 20 to 30% of your income. Now, notice I said income, and we're gonna talk more about that later. You might be wondering, is it before or after taxes, right? Then the next zone is the sweet spot. So that's 30 to 37% of your income. Then there's the stretch zone. So that's 37 to 50% of your income. Now, here's what I love about this framework, because what I mentioned is income. Right now, some of you in the comment, delete the comment, right? Because I'm gonna address it right now. So you're gonna say like, never spend, X amount of your net income or after-tax income, whatever. That's the beautiful thing about this is you can adjust it. Basically, you can toggle your income with either after-tax income or before-tax income. So before tax income, the analogy I like to give is, debt is almost like ice cream. You're gonna get some dessert, you're gonna get some satisfaction because you're gonna get more calories, but you're gonna be satisfied because maybe it's a house that you wanted, blah, 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 right? So before tax income, I see as like getting ice cream in a cone, okay? Because, it's housing the debt before taxes, right? You're gonna get extra calories in, maybe you wanna get fit for the summer. On the other side, after tax income is like getting ice cream in a cup, a little healthier, but it's still something to house the debt, I should say, right? You're gonna get less calories, so you're gonna stay fit for the summer, even though you're getting ice cream. Now, remember, I wanted to help identify what zone is best for you based on your goals. Because if you understand what you wanna have happen in your life, meaning you have a destination, you can actually like optimize for the path, right? So if you're just wandering, it'd be really hard to optimize for something that you don't know what you want, right? So I'm gonna show you who this is best for. So if you're in the save more zone, so we'll pull up the affordability spectrum. Save more is best if you want to retire early, saving for your kids' education, building long-term wealth, and investing in like your future plans. The sweet spot, I would say, if you're unsure about your risk tolerance, like you're kind of balanced, right? Also, if you want balance today and for tomorrow. And then third is you have a stable and steady income to the highest degree possible that you know, right? The stretch zone is, are you like solo qualifying, where maybe, you're on the loan, but you have roommates to help with the mortgage, or you have a partner that's not on the mortgage, or you're not married yet and you're like, yo, are you gonna help me or not? That type of thing, right? Next is promotion or raises that are coming soon and very high probability that you're gonna get it, right? As close to 100% as possible. And also you expect strong income growth in the future. Or lastly, you just love to host and entertain, right? Like that's your thing. You wanna have people at, I call it the watering hole, which is your place. And before we go into the next section, if you're stuck wondering if you're actually ready or not to buy a house, that's why I built the free homebuyer readiness quiz. Like I said, it takes less than 30 seconds. There's no credit pull. It's something that I wish I would have had. And it's when I bought my first house, and I made it free, and my gift to you, okay? And if you run into a constraint in the whole home buying process, there's a video to solve that, because the most prepared buyers get the best deals. And also, if you wanted a more like custom one-on-one guidance plan, there's actually a guidance link right below that where you can actually chat with me directly for 15, 20 minutes, see where your goals are at, 3 things that I would recommend so that way you are the most prepared person. And if it makes sense, maybe we can be your mortgage advisor too. Okay, so now we understand the affordability spectrum. Let me teach you this cool trick that you can use called the Affordability Multiplier. Now, for the multiplier, this is where you can actually adjust it based on your goals. Like we mentioned, who are you? I always tell my son that. It's kind of fun. It's a running joke. I always say, who are you? And he's like, it's a Rush Hour scene. So I am you. No, you are me. So anyway, side quest here. We're going to get back to the real thing. So inside joke. My wife is laughing over there. Okay, so are you the save more person, right? Or are you the sweet spot person or the stretch zone, person? So if you're in the save more, we're going to pull up the, the graph here, of course, right? That's going to be 3.5 times your income. If you're in the sweet spot, that's going to be 4.5 times. And then if you're on the stretch zone, that's going to be 5.5 times your income. So I'm going to put here on the screen, if you make 80,000, because that's the median in the US, just as an example. So, 80,000, you're going to multiply that by your multiplier, 3.5, 4.5, and 5.5, right? So that's 280,000, 360,000 for the sweet spot zone, and then 440,000 for the stretch zone. Again, a lot less than 500,000, right? And again, that's what the lender would pre-approve you for. And these numbers that I'm showing you are basically based on your lifestyle. And this is even an even more important reason why working with, I would say, a mortgage advisor or somebody who actually will help you with the advice that you get is even more important, because they're going to customize it for you instead of like just the maximums, if that makes sense. And they're going to teach you all these frameworks. It's almost like being able to see around the corner, right? And by the way, if you wanted more of a one-on-one conversation, you can schedule in with the guidance call down below. Again, it's completely free, no strings attached, no credit pull or anything like that. Would love to help a fellow subscriber on my YouTube channel. Okay, so now you might be wondering, what's like the rule of thumb at the bottom of the affordability multiplier? I call that the debt effect. So remember, with all of these scenarios, I was calculating with no debt, but we all know life isn't perfect. We all have some sort of monthly obligation that we have to pay for, whether that's the car, a credit card, or personal loans or student loans, things like that, right? And here's the cool thing. Lenders will actually look at your monthly payment or minimum monthly payment, not necessarily like the total balance, okay? So however, on your end, I would translate minimum monthly payment for credit cards to like, what would you actually have to pay off the credit cards within 2 to 3 years, right? Because if you just pay the minimum payment for credit cards, we'll pull it up over here. If you pay the minimum, it takes 15 to 20 years or something like that, right? So then what you want to do is you add up all your monthly payments, right? For student loans, credit cards, assuming you pay it off in 2 or 3 years. And let's say you add that all up together and that's $500 a month. Now you just simply take 5, multiply by 20,000. So that's $100,000 less in purchase price, okay? So remember the rule of thumb, $100 a month is roughly $20,000 in purchase price. So if you have $100 a month in debt, you lower your purchase price by $20,000 after you do the affordability multiplier. Now, this is all great, and I'm sure you've probably learned something new here, hence why I call my company Learn Lending, by the way. That's always the goal, right? However, if you think about it, it's all like a spreadsheet, not real life. So like, how can we actually simulate real life as close as possible before we buy a house. Okay, so I want you to imagine if I told you, hey, I read all the books on boxing, right? But I've never boxed before. And then I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna go challenge or step into the ring with Mike Tyson during his prime, all right? You're gonna be like, no way in the world. But I'm like, wait a minute, I read all the books, I watched all the YouTube videos, therefore I'm an expert boxer, right? You're gonna be like, you're crazy, right? So what's the saying? Sometimes you gotta get punched in the face before you actually realize what real life is. So that's actually why the process I have is called the Homeownership free trial, which is like testing out your monthly budget before you actually step into the ring. So I'm gonna walk you through the process right now. So basically, first step, super simple, is you wanna identify what's your hypothetical monthly payment, which is HPMT. I call it the HPMT, not your health points, but your hypothetical monthly payment. So first, you wanna start with 33% of your income. It's kind of like right in the sweet spot zone, right? That transition. Let's just say 33% of your before tax income, but again, you can do after tax if you wanted to, was $3,000, for example, after you did the math. And your rent right now is $2,500 a month, right? You wanna take your HPMT minus your current rent. So 3,000 minus 2,500 is $500, okay? So that's your hypothetical monthly payment. Then I want you to make sure you have a high yield savings account open, okay? If you don't, make sure you have it open. If you do, you can skip to the next step, which is set up an auto transfer of $500 from your regular checking account to your high yield savings account, okay? And you want that to happen at the beginning of the month. So it's almost like you have this expense of $3,000, right? So it's like $2,500 for the rent and the $500 expense going out of your checking account. $2,500 is going to your landlord, $500 is going to this account that you also own, okay? Now, the next step is at the end of the month, you wanna figure out, did I have enough money to pay the bills, live my life? Did I have to change my lifestyle? And the cool thing is, if you ran out of money and you needed that $500, you just transfer it back to yourself, right? And then the other cool thing is, if you had enough money, congratulations. $3,000 a month is probably comfortable for you. The next step is you want to get feedback and adjust the hypothetical monthly payment. The goal is to get as much data as possible. So then you can increase the hypothetical monthly payment from $500 to $700, $1,000. Or if you weren't comfortable, you want to lower that hypothetical monthly payment till you find that, uncomfortable range. And then when you transition to the comfortable range, okay? So that's probably where you want to purchase or below that. And the cool thing is, like, even if you're not buying for like 12 months, you can get 12 data points. Or if it's 24 months, or if you're trying to buy in 3 months, you at least get some data. Now, I know we covered a lot, but this is actually what I cover during our free guidance call that we actually provide to help home buyers get closer to home ownership. So if it makes sense, we would love to be your mortgage advisor. So check out the link down below if you're interested, and we'll see if we're a good fit. And as always, I try to make the best videos in the mortgage education space. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Also, YouTube is recommending that you check out this video right here. And as always, keep learning. I'll catch you on the next one.